At 3:30 a.m., Chanti Dixon got into an Uber after finishing her work shift in Indianapolis. She had no personal vehicle and relied on ride-sharing for transportation. The driver assigned to her was Francisco Valadez, a 29-year-old with no prior complaints or flag incidents on his Uber account. But this routine ride home would end in tragedy. Chanti's body was found the next afternoon in a wooded area, and Valadez would eventually confess to her murder. How does someone you trust completely become your worst nightmare? How does a routine transaction turn deadly? And what does this case reveal about the risks we face every single day when we place our lives in the hands of strangers?
An Uber driver is arrested for the murder of 30-year-old Chanti Dixon, who was missing this weekend. The driver confessed to killing Dixon. ITV's Kat Sandoval pieces together what happened.
This is where Chanti Dixon's body was found, in the woods on a dead-end street on Wagner Lane. It's also just a few feet away from her apartment. Police say 29-year-old Uber driver Francisco Valadez drove Dixon to the scene Sunday morning. Valadez told police he initially attempted to have sex with Dixon in the back of his car, but he got angry with her. He later admitted to police he shot her in the head in his car, then hid Dixon's body behind the concrete barrier. He also said he tried to have sex with her again. Dixon was found naked with a sweatshirt pulled over her head and arms, lying on her stomach.
Welcome back to True Crime Station, where we dive deep into real cases that shake communities and reveal important truths about the world we live in. I'm your host, and today we're covering a case that will make you question the trust you place in everyday services. Before we continue, I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt unsafe during a rideshare trip? What safety measures do you take when using these services? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your experiences might help someone else stay safe. We're examining the tragic case of Chanti Dixon, a 30-year-old mother and online personality whose trust was weaponized against her. This isn't just another crime story. This is a wake-up call about the vulnerabilities that exist in services millions of us use daily. Chanti Dixon lived a life centered around her 2 children. At 30 years old, she was a single mother in Indianapolis, working to provide for her family. She was known as a responsible and dependable person, maintaining a routine lifestyle centered around her family and church community. As an online personality, Chanti maintained a social media presence where she shared positivity and connected with other working mothers facing similar challenges. Her communication records and social media activity showed no indication of risky behavior or threats prior to her death. She had no criminal history and was described by those who knew her as reliable and caring. Her work schedule often extended into the early morning hours, presenting unique transportation challenges in a city where public transit options are limited during overnight hours. The lack of a personal vehicle wasn't unusual for someone in her economic situation, particularly given the costs associated with car ownership in urban areas. For many working parents like Chanti, ride-sharing services represent a more affordable transportation solution than car ownership. Chanti's communication patterns with family members demonstrated her consistent reliability and concern for others' peace of mind. She maintained regular contact with relatives, always letting them know when she arrived safely at work or home. This established pattern made her sudden silence particularly alarming to family members who knew that extended periods without contact were completely out of character. Her employment history reflected steady work in service industries, demonstrating reliability and commitment to maintaining financial stability for her family. Co-workers describe her as punctual, professional, and always willing to work additional shifts when opportunities arose. This work ethic meant she often accepted late-night schedules that required transportation during vulnerable hours. Her use of ride-sharing services followed established safety practices recommended by companies and law enforcement. She typically shared ride details with family members, used the in-app messaging system rather than direct phone communication with drivers, and maintained awareness of route information during trips. These precautions, while considered best practices, would prove insufficient protection against a determined predator. At 3 a.m., Chanti Dixon's work shift ended, marking the beginning of what should have been a routine journey home to her children. Following her established routine, she ordered an Uber through the smartphone app. The system matched her with Francisco Valadez, whose profile appeared normal within the platform's driver network. The ride-sharing industry's background check procedures have known limitations that this case would ultimately expose. Standard background checks typically examine criminal history, driving records, and vehicle registration, but they may not capture recent criminal activity, incidents that didn't result in convictions, or behavioral patterns that suggest potential danger to passengers. Valadez picked up Chanti at 3:30 a.m. outside her workplace, a location she'd used for rideshare pickups numerous times before without incident. Initially, GPS data from Uber showed the ride following the correct route through Indianapolis streets that Chanti would have recognized from previous trips. However, the route then deviated significantly toward an isolated area near Pleasant Run Parkway and Arlington Avenue, a location that had no connection to Chanti's home address. This deviation would have been immediately apparent to Chanti, likely triggering alarm and resistance that escalated the situation beyond Valadez's initial criminal intentions. The geographic analysis of the route deviation reveals the deliberate nature of Valadez's actions. The location he chose was sufficiently isolated to minimize the risk of witnesses, while remaining accessible by vehicle. The area's characteristics suggest advanced knowledge or planning, indicating this may not be his first time using ride-sharing access to identify potential victims. Chanti's phone stopped transmitting data shortly after this deviation, suggesting the device was damaged, destroyed, or deliberately disabled. The timing of this communication loss coincides with when investigators believe the assault and murder occurred, creating a digital record that would become crucial evidence. By morning, her prolonged absence had triggered genuine panic among her family members. This was a woman who never failed to check in, never disappeared without explanation, and never left her children wondering about her whereabouts. When 10 a.m. arrived with still no word from Chanti, her family knew they had to act. They contacted Uber directly, hoping the company could provide information about her ride. Uber was able to confirm that Chanti had been picked up by Francisco Valadez and could provide basic trip data, but the information they shared only deepened the family's concerns. The ride had deviated from its intended route, and there was no record of a completed trip. With this information in hand, Chanti's family filed a missing person report with the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department around 10 a.m., less than 7 hours after Chanti had last been seen alive. The family provided comprehensive details: her work schedule, her usual transportation routine, the specific Uber ride information, and their unsuccessful attempts to contact her. Indianapolis Metro Police recognized the urgency and treated the case with the seriousness it deserved from the beginning. A 30-year-old mother with no history of risky behavior doesn't simply vanish without reason. The fact that her disappearance could be traced to a specific rideshare trip gave investigators immediate leads to pursue. Detective teams began working directly with Uber to obtain detailed records that went far beyond basic trip information. This included comprehensive GPS tracking data, driver account information, vehicle registration details, and communication records. The cooperation between law enforcement and the ride-sharing company would prove crucial in building the timeline that led to Valadez's arrest. The search efforts intensified throughout the day as police began systematically checking areas along the route where GPS data showed the ride had deviated, focusing particular attention on isolated locations that might provide cover for criminal activity. That same afternoon, a jogger discovered Chanti's body in a wooded area near Pleasant Run Parkway and Arlington Avenue. The discovery location matched the last location pinged by her phone. She had been shot and showed signs of physical assault, confirming that her death had resulted from violent criminal activity. Indianapolis Metro Police immediately secured the crime scene and began collecting evidence. The wooded area was isolated enough that the crime could have occurred without witnesses, but also accessible enough that it could be reached by vehicle. The timing was significant. Less than 12 hours had passed between her murder and the discovery of her remains, meaning evidence was still fresh and digital records were immediately available. The location where Chanti's body was found was not random. It was secluded enough for a crime to occur undetected, but directly connected to the GPS data, showing where her Uber ride had deviated from its intended route. The geographic evidence was already pointing toward a connection between her death and the ride-share trip that was supposed to take her home safely. The investigation relied heavily on digital evidence that created an unbreakable chain connecting Francisco Valadez to the crime. Uber provided comprehensive ride logs and GPS data, showing the route deviation with minute-by-minute precision. The company's tracking systems had recorded detailed location data throughout the ride, creating a complete record from pickup to the point where the trip was never officially completed. Forensic analysis of Valadez's vehicle yielded DNA evidence that directly linked him to Chanti's murder. Crime scene technicians found Chanti's DNA inside the vehicle, confirming that physical violence had occurred within the car. The location and pattern of DNA evidence supported the conclusion that Chanti had fought against her attacker. Additional forensic evidence included a shell casing found at the crime scene that matched Valadez's registered handgun. Ballistics analysis confirmed that the bullet that killed Chanti had been fired from his weapon, creating another unbreakable link between the suspect and victim. The fact that Valadez owned and had access to the murder weapon eliminated any possibility that another person could have been responsible. Video surveillance footage from various locations along the route provided visual confirmation of the digital evidence. Traffic cameras and security systems had captured images of Valadez's vehicle traveling toward the crime scene during the time period when Chanti's murder occurred. This visual evidence corroborated the GPS tracking data and confirmed the timeline established by digital records. Cell phone records analysis revealed normal communication patterns leading up to Chanti's death, followed by the abrupt cessation of all digital activity at the precise time. Valadez initially gave inconsistent statements to police, first claiming Chanti had exited the vehicle early, then changing his story as evidence mounted. However, as detectives presented each piece of evidence systematically, his false narratives collapsed under the weight of scientific proof. Within 48 hours of discovering Chanti's body, Valadez was arrested under the weight of overwhelming evidence. Francisco Valadez ultimately confessed to the brutal murder of Chanti Dixon. His confession revealed disturbing details that confirmed investigators' worst suspicions about the predatory nature of the attack and the deliberate exploitation of his position as a rideshare driver.
This is just disgusting all around, and it did not have to happen. This is a family that's been ripped apart. This woman is gone from the world unnecessarily.
As a woman, this hits differently for me. Women, girls, mothers, they have a right to exist freely in our community without fear of something heinous happening to them. They have a right to walk, bike, order a ride share without fearing something bad will happen to them.
According to Valadez's statement to police, he had attempted to sexually assault Chanti in the car after deliberately deviating from the assigned route to an isolated location. He had used a position of trust as her designated driver to transport her to a secluded area where it could attack her without fear of interruption. Chanti's resistance to the sexual assault had triggered Valadez's violent escalation. Her refusal to submit enraged him to the point where he decided to kill her rather than allow her to escape and report his crimes. This progression from attempted sexual assault to murder demonstrated the calculated and predatory mindset that had driven his actions. The confession revealed that after shooting Chanti, Valadez had attempted to sexually assault her corpse, demonstrating a level of depravity that shocked even experienced investigators. This behavior indicated psychological disturbances that raised questions about whether Chanti had been his first victim. After committing these horrific acts, Valadez had attempted to conceal evidence by hiding Chanti's body in the wooded area where it was later discovered. His efforts to cover up the murder included positioning her body where it might not be found quickly, though the concealment was ineffective and the remains were discovered within hours. The confession process revealed Valadez's attempts to continue normal activities after committing murder, including return to active status as an Uber driver and accepting additional ride requests. This behavior demonstrated a chilling ability to compartmentalize his violent actions and suggested he might have been capable of harming other passengers if not quickly apprehended. Based on confession and physical evidence, Valadez was formally charged with first-degree murder, attempted sexual assault, and obstruction of justice. The multiple charges ensured he would face severe consequences for every aspect of his crimes against Chanti. Chanti Dixon's murder forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about the services millions of people use daily. She followed every safety recommendation available to ride-sharing passengers. She used a legitimate platform with built-in safety features. She was picked up by a driver with no complaints or flag incidents. She did everything right, yet she still became a victim of the person she trusted to protect her. This case exposes a fundamental vulnerability at the heart of ride-sharing services. Every time we get into a stranger's vehicle, we place our lives in their hands. We trust that background checks have been thorough, that monitoring systems work effectively, and that the person behind the wheel shares our basic values about human life and dignity. Chanti's murder shows how catastrophically that trust can be betrayed. The statistics surrounding rideshare safety are sobering. According to safety reports, Uber alone reported over 3,000 sexual assaults and 58 fatalities related to physical assault during 2019 and 2020 combined. While companies emphasize that dangerous incidents represent a small percentage of total rides, the absolute numbers reveal a significant public safety concern affecting real families and communities. The technology that was supposed to protect Chanti ultimately became the tool that documented her murder. GPS tracking recorded the exact route to her death. Digital records provided the timeline of her final moments. Cell phone data pinpointed where her life ended. Chanti felt safe because she was using a legitimate service with built-in protections. The app tracked her ride, recorded her driver's information, and maintained digital records. These features created an illusion of safety that may have prevented her from taking additional precautions. We must also address the tendency to blame victims for crimes committed against them. Some might ask why Chanti was out so late, why she didn't have a car, or why she trusted a stranger. These questions miss the point entirely. Chanti was a working mother who used available transportation to get home from her job. She had every right to expect safe passage, and the failure lies entirely with Francisco Valadez and the systems that failed to prevent his crimes. I want to hear from all of you about this. What safety measures do you take when using ride-sharing services? Have you ever felt unsafe during a trip? What changes would you like to see companies implement? Share your experiences in the comments. Your insights could help someone else stay safe. Valadez had successfully navigated these procedures despite harboring the predatory impulses that led to Chanti's murder. The lesson here isn't that we should stop using ride-sharing services entirely. For many people, these services provide essential transportation that improves their quality of life. The lesson is that we must demand better safety measures, remain aware of our vulnerability, and work together to create systems that truly protect the most vulnerable users. The legal proceedings against Francisco Valadez moved forward with overwhelming evidence supporting the charges against him. His confession, combined with DNA evidence, ballistics analysis, GPS tracking, and video surveillance, created an unassailable case that left no doubt about his guilt in Chanti Dixon's murder. The first-degree murder charge reflected the premeditated nature of Valadez's crimes. His decision to deviate from the assigned route, attack Chanti, and subsequently attempt to hide evidence demonstrated clear intent and planning. Additional charges of attempted sexual assault and obstruction of justice ensured he would face consequences for every aspect of his crimes. For Chanti's family, the legal process represented a path toward justice, but it could never restore what they had lost. 2 children grew up without their mother. Family members grieved not just the loss of Chanti's life, but the future she would never have, the milestones she wouldn't witness, the love she couldn't give, the dreams she couldn't pursue. The community response to Chanti's murder included renewed discussions about rideshare safety and the need for stronger protections for passengers. Her case became a catalyst for conversations about background check procedures, real-time monitoring systems, and emergency response protocols. While these discussions couldn't save Chanti, they represented hope that her death might prevent similar tragedies. Chanti's memory extends far beyond her role as a crime victim. She was a devoted mother who worked hard to provide for her children. She was an active member of her church community who supported others through her faith. She was an online personality who used her platform to spread positivity. Her life had value and meaning that existed entirely separate from the circumstances of her death. The impact of Chanti's case extended beyond individual safety awareness to broader policy discussions. Legislators, regulators, and industry leaders faced questions about what additional measures could be implemented to protect passengers from predatory drivers. Her death became part of an ongoing national conversation about balancing convenience with safety. For other families who have lost loved ones to similar crimes, Chanti's case provided both solidarity and hope. Her family's pursuit of justice and their efforts to honor her memory offered a model for transforming personal tragedy into broader social change. Their advocacy helped ensure that Chanti's death would not be forgotten or dismissed. The children Chanti left behind represent the most profound impact of this tragedy. They will grow up knowing their mother was taken from them by someone she trusted to keep her safe. The community support surrounding them demonstrated that Chanti's legacy of care and responsibility would continue even in her absence. Francisco Valadez's conviction and sentencing provided legal closure, ensuring he would face severe consequences while being permanently removed from opportunities to harm other passengers. The justice system's response sent a clear message that those who exploit positions of trust to commit violent crimes will be held fully accountable. As we conclude this case, remember that Chanti Dixon was more than a victim. She was a person whose life mattered, whose dreams were valid, and whose death demands justice. Her story serves as both a tribute to her memory and a call to action for enhanced safety measures in ride-sharing services. Thank you for watching True Crime Station. If this story has moved you, if it's made you think differently about safety or trust, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your engagement helps ensure that stories like Chanti's reach more people and contribute to conversations that might prevent future tragedies. Share your thoughts about this case in the comments below. What changes would you like to see in ride-sharing safety? How do we balance convenience with protection? These discussions matter, and your voice is part of the solution. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest true crime investigations. We'll see you in the next episode of True Crime Station, where we continue to honor victims by telling their stories with respect and truth. Chanti Dixon trusted her Uber driver to take her home safely. That trust cost her everything, but her memory challenges all of us to build a world where such trust is never again weaponized against innocent people. Justice for Chanti means not just punishment for her killer, but systemic changes that protect future passengers from experiencing her fate.